When I was 17, I got my first car. It's a pretty good feeling. For those of you who have gone through it, you know. Got my first car, and within about a month or two, it was an old car, and so it had just like a tape player. And it's like this thing before CDs, which y'all don't even know what those are. But there's this thing called tapes, and you stuck a tape in, and you had to rewind, all this kind of stuff. Never mind, doesn't matter. Had a tape player, so I put a CD player in it, and got it done at Best Buy over in Regency. And I was driving home from doing that, and I was looking down at my CD player, and someone cut across traffic a few cars in front of me, and I rear-ended the car in front of me and didn't have my car for 2 months of senior year and got taken to school every day by my parents as a senior. And I learned something that day. I learned that experience hurts. Experience hurts. Learning by your mistakes hurts. It sucks because you have to encounter pain in order to learn the lesson. Something we've been talking about throughout this series is that experience hurts, but wisdom doesn't. In fact, if you pursue wisdom, you will have a life with fewer regrets, which is the name of this series, No Regrets. Everybody say no regrets. No regrets. It's a series about wisdom. And when we pursue wisdom, we live a life with fewer regrets. And wisdom is understanding the best choice and actually doing it. We can get wisdom from a lot of places, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about where to get wisdom tonight. And the question that we've been asking throughout this series is, in light of my past experiences, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? In light of my past experiences, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? All of this is based around 3 verses in the New Testament in Ephesians, and also around a book that I read when I was 18 or 19 years old called Ask It by a guy named Andy Stanley, and it changed my life because this question that I learned from that book and that we've been teaching throughout this series changed my life and has helped lead me into a life with fewer regrets. I want us to all read it together one more time, because when you say it out loud, you remember it, and the whole point of this series is that you'll remember it and perhaps ask it to yourself. In light of my past experiences, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? That's right, what's the wise thing to do? And I want to tell y'all something. I know we've been talking about this with time and with moral decisions and sex last week and all this kind of stuff and these kind of heavy things, but I want you to know, I use this question literally every day. Even 15 or 16 years after I read the book, I use this question all of the time. I will ask myself, I'll be at the gym, and I'll take my phone, and I'll put it up somewhere on a machine or something, and then I'll say, I might want it closer to me so that I can grab it in between sets or whatever, but if I leave it there, it could get knocked down. If it gets knocked down, it's going to crack, and I'd really rather not have a cracked phone. So what would be the wise thing to do? It would be to just put it on the floor or put it away from me. And I know that sounds like a really stupid example, but I just want to illustrate that you can ask yourself this question in every circumstance, with little things, big things, huge decisions, or just the small daily decisions to help you have a life with fewer regrets. So use it in every single situation. I'm going to read the scripture one more time, since this is the last week of the series, one more time, that really is the center point of this whole series, and it is this: Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 through 17, and it says this: be very careful. Everybody say careful? Careful. We should be careful with the way we live. Careful. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise or as foolish, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. The days are full of stress, they're full of worry, they're full of opportunities that come up and take away the most important thing for the most urgent thing. And we don't want to do that. We want to take advantage of our limited time here on earth. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. And the Lord's will is that we live by wisdom. The Lord's will leads us into a life with fewer regrets. The things that God calls us to do actually makes life better. So one more time before I get into it, I'm just going to read it to you. In light of my past experiences, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? And that's a great question. However, there are times where you just don't know what to do, right? There are times where you're just I don't know what I'm supposed to do. A lot of times it comes when you're doing something for the first time. When you're doing something for the first time. I remember when I first got my permit, not when I got my license, because once you get your license, you've been driving for a year, right? You know what you're doing. But when I got my permit, how many of y'all remember the day you got your permit? You turned 15. How many of you got it the day you turned 15? Yeah, y'all are the smart kids. I waited like 6 or 7 months, so then I wasn't getting my license until I was almost a senior. So it is like this weird thing because you go into this little government building and you take a test with like 20 questions. Like, what's a stop sign mean? Well, I think it means to stop. What's a yield sign? Well, probably to yield. Like when we answer this road signs test, and then they give 15-year-olds 2-ton vehicles and tell them to drive 75 miles an hour down the road. Like, it's insane what we do. So a 15-year-old gets behind the wheel, and they know what a few signs mean, and we're like, all right, you can go drive. And I remember pulling out. I was on 3rd Street, and my mom's in the passenger seat. And I remember pulling out to 3rd Street, and she's like, okay, turn left. And I'm like, what? And she's like, turn left. I'm like, yeah, but there's cars coming that way. And she's like, yeah, you just got to wait for the cars to not be coming. And I'm like, yeah, but there's cars coming this way too. And she's like, yeah, you got to find a time where there's no cars coming either way. I'm like, it's 3rd Street. Like, there's always cars coming. She's like, well, then you just got to press hard on the gas. And I'm like, this doesn't seem like a smart idea. I need to wait. I need to find, and I was like, for the rest of my life, I'm just going to go to stoplights and get a green arrow. I cannot turn left, or I'm just going to have to turn right a lot of times until I get where I'm going, because I cannot go left. It's never going to happen. I didn't know what to do because it was the first time I'd done it. Or I know all of you can relate to this because you've all gotten into middle school. So the first day of middle school, remember, you go to middle school and you're the smallest kid. You go from having one teacher to having 6 or 7 teachers, and then they're like, oh, and here's a locker, and here's a code, and you're like, I don't even know how to use a locker. Like, I don't know how to and then I turn it twice, and then I have to turn it once the other way, and then twice the other way, and it's like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a middle schooler, and my body's changing, and like they're telling me to just go from class to class, and the school's big, and there's more kids, and I'm the youngest, and I don't know what to do. Why? Because you've never been there before. And I know some of you have gone through this experience, but first time you kiss somebody, you just don't know what to do. You don't know what you don't know. So what do? I don't know. You do what you saw in movies or TV shows or social media or something. I remember the first time I kissed a girl, and I had just turned 16. And I know some of y'all are like, well, I made out with a girl when I was 8. I'm like, that's disgusting, first of all. Whenever people are like, well, my first kiss was when I was in 2nd grade, I'm like, that's got to be illegal. Like, there's no way we should be like, no. Okay, it's just, you're too young. So anyway, I was 16, just turned 16, had my first girlfriend, went on our first date, and we both knew she had never kissed a girl. Well, I don't know, she had kissed a girl. She had never kissed a boy, at least. And so, all right, I'm not going to be able to focus the rest of it. Okay, So we're both like each other's first kiss, right? And we're sitting in this movie, and it was this stupid romantic comedy, and we both knew why we were there. This was not about a date. This was about like an experience. We have to kiss. And like my stomach is like it was one of the most nervous moments of my life. Like, I was dreading doing it. I was like, I know I'm supposed to enjoy this, but like I feel sick to my stomach. I don't want to do this. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. And so for an hour and a half, we sit through this movie, and like I'm just like, I'm not making a move. I'm not going to do it. Even at one point, she like offers me a breath mint, which might have meant that my breath stank, but it also might have been an encouragement to, all right, boy, come on, let's go, pastor's kid, make a move. But I didn't make a move, and so the sermon ends, or not the sermon, okay. Y'all want the sermon to be over? I'm all flustered. Okay, the movie ends. All right, the movie ends. And so we walk outside, and I'm like, I got to make my move. And here's the worst part. Neither of us had our license yet. Her dad was coming to pick us up, which is awkward. So we go and we sit on the side of Regal Cinema, right behind where Taziki's is now. And we go and sit on the side, and I'm like, all right, here's my move. And so I just go in, and I'm like, I guess, and I think I kissed her like the Alien movie. I'm just like, I don't know, like my tongue's just coming out. I'm just like, I don't know, am I supposed to like brush her teeth with my tongue? Like, I don't know how to do this whole thing. And so like, I just went in, and it was bad. There was lots of spit. It was disgusting. It wasn't it wasn't enjoyable because I didn't know what I was doing. And sometimes, I might as well just end the sermon. Y'all can't focus on anything anymore. Sometimes we get into situations where we just don't know what to do because we've never been that way before. And so the question we want to answer tonight is, what do you do when you don't know the wise thing to do? You've asked the question, you've thought about the answer, but you just don't know what to do. What do you do? What do you do? How do you figure out what the wise thing to do is when you've never been that way before? When you've never gone in that direction before? How do you know the wise thing to do when you just don't know the wise thing to do? That's what we want to answer tonight, because sometimes you're going to try your best to know the wise thing to do. But no matter how hard you think, no matter how hard you focus, you can't figure it out because, again, you've never been that way before. But I want you to think about it this way. If you were hiking and you got lost in a national park, who would you ask for directions? A tour guide? Are there tour guides on hikes? You would, well, if you didn't have a phone or if you weren't getting signal, you'd probably be looking for a park ranger or at least someone who had gotten to the top of the hike and was coming back down because they have been that way before. If your car breaks down and you know nothing about cars and you need to get it fixed, who do you go to for advice? A dad who knows what they're doing or a mechanic. Why? Because the mechanic has been that way before. They know what's going on. If you're in math and you don't know how to do a certain equation, who do you go to? A teacher, or a kid who's a lot smarter than you, or a kid who's older than you. You go to someone who would know how to do it. If you want to get better at a sport, lacrosse, basketball, soccer, whatever, who do you go to? A coach. A coach. Why? Because a coach has been that way before. Either as a player or in coaching other players. They have figured it out before, and they have helped other players get better at their sport. You go to someone who's been that way before. So I want to give you 2 steps for when you don't know the wise thing to do to help you figure it out. The first step is this. Go to others. Go to others. Go to others who have been that way before and love you. Go to others who have been that way before and love you. Let me read to you out of a couple of verses in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 20, which is a whole book from thousands of years ago about wisdom. And it says this: if you want to get wise, just read this book. Read a proverb a day. You'll get wiser, I promise. Chapter 19, verse 20 says this: listen to advice and accept discipline. Accept discipline, which I know nobody likes discipline, but listen to advice and accept discipline. And at the end, you will be counted among the wise. Here's what this proverb is saying: the wisest people on earth know what they don't know. Let me say that again. The wisest people on earth know what they don't know. And they go to people who do. The wiser you are, the more you realize that you really don't know all the answers. And so you have to go to other people. This is why, at least the good ones, good presidents, good kings, good prime ministers, surround themselves with a cabinet or a group of people to help them make decisions. Because nobody understands everything. And so leaders of countries, they have someone to go to when they have to make a military decision. They go to the expert in war and in military operations. When they have to make an economic decision, they go to finance and economic experts. When they have to make a science decision, they go to scientists and doctors. They go to the people who know the best, because nobody knows how to do everything. Nobody knows every part of every single subject in the world. And so the wisest people go to other people. Why? Because only fools, everybody say only fools. Only fools, you don't want to be a fool. Only fools try to figure it out all on their own. Only fools try to figure it out all on their own. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 15 says the following: the way of fools seems right to them. Isn't that true? The way of fools seems being the key word, seems right to them. But the wise listen to advice. The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. There's 2 points here. Fools do what they think is best. The wise people listen to other people. Here's the thing about humans. We usually think we're right. I usually think I'm right, but here's what I know about teenagers, because I've been a teenager and because it's just a part of growing up. Teenagers, maybe more than any other group in the entire world, think they know everything. I know. I know. You guys think you know everything. Which, I mean, it makes sense. You've been around for 13 years, 4 of which you can't remember. So obviously you know everything there is to know, right? You're learning geometry for the first time. You're like, well, but I know how the world works. Like, you think you know everything, especially when you're a teenager. And why do you think that? Because you lack experience. Not because you're stupid. Y'all aren't stupid. Not because you don't want to make good decisions, but because you just lack experience. You haven't been that way before. And often teenagers think they know better than anybody else. When we're young, we think we know everything there is to know. But look at the proverb. The way of fools seems right to them. It's saying that we're always going to think we're right, but often we're not. We're always going to think we're right, but often we're not. And so we have to bring in other people to the process. And so that's why we need to go to others who have been that way before and love you. Here's why I put those two parts in there and not just go to other people. Because not everybody is created equally when it comes to advice and wisdom. We have to go to people who have been that way before and love us. There are a lot of people that love you. Like, y'all got friends who love you. But because they're the same age as you, because they have not necessarily experienced much more than you, they have not been that way before. And so they're not good people to go to. I know you think, well, but my best friends, like, they know me and they love me. Yes, they do. However, they might not be the best people to go for wisdom because they've never been that way before. They don't know what they don't know. They're sitting in the same seat as you. They're going through the same things you're in. And so you don't want to go to people who are in the same boat as you, who have not been through anything more than you've been through. Yes, they love you. They want to give you the right answer, but they just don't know. By the same token, we don't want to go to people who know all the answers but don't love us. Like, you might have some college age or young adult manager at work, and they might know some things that you don't know because they've experienced them. And you might think, well, they're a good person to go to for advice. But here's the thing. They might not love you. I'm not saying they don't like you or care, but they're not invested in your life. Not like a life group leader or a friend or an aunt or uncle, a family member. They're not really invested in your life. If you go make a stupid decision, it's not going to bother them. Like, it's not going to change their life. They're going to be like, oh, that's too bad. And then they're just going to move on. No. They don't love you. They might like you. They might know you. They might be a friend or an acquaintance, but they don't love you. They don't really care what happens to you, or they don't love you enough to tell you the hard things. And so, yeah, they'll tell you what they think, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I hope it works. But they won't really push your buttons. They won't really get in your business because they don't want to make things awkward. They don't love you enough to make things awkward. And so they just kind of sit back and let you make the stupid decisions, even if they know better, because they don't really love you. They're not really that invested in you. We need to go to others who have been that way before and love you. Now, this part of the sermon you're not going to like. You're not going to like this. But guess who one of the best people is who love you and have been that way before? Any guesses? Parents. And I know when you're a teenager, you think your parents are absolute morons. I get it. I've been there. Something happens when you turn 11 years old, and you go from thinking your parents are Superman and Superwoman to thinking, I don't know how they tie their shoes in the morning. Like, I don't know how they function. I don't know how they do anything. They're idiots. I would never listen to my parents. And then, like, at some point, maybe like when you're 19, 20, 21 years old, you just snap out of it one day and you're like, oh, my parents are cool. They know something. Now, I totally understand. Not all parents are created equally. Not all parents have been involved in your life the way they need to. Not all parents have been there the way they need to. Not all parents are really wise. A lot of your parents have made messes of their lives. And so not every situation is the same. And I know some of you don't have great relationships with your parents. But in general, parents love you. And they love you knowing you and knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, what your weaknesses are, all that kind of stuff. And they may not be the wisest people, but guess what? They've been that way before. They've been through middle school. They've been through high school. They've been through college. They've been through young adults, their 20s, their 30s. They've been through new dating relationships. They've been through, hey, guess what? You were born. They've been through sex. They've done they figured out some way to birth you, right? So, like, they know something that maybe you don't. And often we're like, I would never go to my parents. Listen, one of the best places to go to for wisdom is your parents, because they love you and they've been that way before. And I know you think you know better. We went to the Donner Run this morning, and it was 52 degrees, and it was 40-mile-an-hour winds. And my daughter refused to put on a jacket. She would not do it. And instead, for an hour, she just sat out there and was freezing to death. But she didn't want to listen. So she just went out there, and she froze, and she'll probably be sick tomorrow. And that's just the way it is, because she didn't want to listen to her parents. Why? Because I'm an idiot. What would I know about, weather and whether or not you're going to be cold and all that kind of, what would I know? And so her 4-year-old self thought she knew better, and that's what we do. Our 14, 15-year-old selves are like, well, I know better than my mom or my dad. What do they know? They've never been a teenager. Well, they had to go through teen years to get to where they're at, but they've never been to, they don't know what it's like today. Yeah, maybe they don't. But guess what? They love you, and they've been that way before. And so, your parents are a great option. Another great option within this student ministry are life group leaders. If you're a life group leader, stand up. Stand up. Look at these people. Stay standing for a second. I want y'all to know something. These people do not get paid to come and be with you on Sundays and Wednesdays and text you and call you and go to lunch with you. They don't get paid. It's not their job. They do it above and beyond their family, their friends, their spouses, their kids, their lives. Why? Because they love you. And guess what? They have been that way before. Y'all can sit down. Thank you. They have been that way before. Listen, these people are people you need to go to. They literally give their time to help you. To point you to Jesus, to help you make better decisions, to help your life be better, to help you have fewer regrets. They love you, and they want what's best for you. And so, you should listen to them. You should have relationships with them. You should not block them. You should not ignore them. When they ask you to go to coffee or lunch, you should go with them. Why? Because they love you, and they've been that way before. They are great sources of wisdom. Tonight, our whole response is going to be about life groups. And so if you're not involved in a life group, or if you haven't been in a long time, or if you've been ignoring your life group leader for a while, y'all need to respond when we get to the end of this sermon, okay? Here's the second thing that we need to do when we don't know the wise thing to do. And it's really more important than the first thing, but it's a little bit more difficult because it's a little bit more abstract, and it doesn't involve talking to someone face to face. It is to go to God. To go to God. This is what James, the half-brother of Jesus, said about God. In chapter 1 of his letter to Christians, he says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. Pretty simple. If you lack wisdom, you should ask God. And look what he does. He will give generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. This is what this means. He doesn't care if you're not wise. He doesn't care if you've messed up. He doesn't care if you don't even believe in him. He will still give you wisdom generously if you will go to him and ask for it. He's not holding it back. He's not saying, well, you got to give a little bit more money or a little bit more time if you want me to give you my wisdom. No, he gives you wisdom generously. But, listen to this, but when you ask for wisdom, you must believe and not doubt. Meaning, you need to trust what he says. Because the one who doubts or the one who doesn't trust is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Here's what this is saying. Have any of y'all ever been on a boat when it's rocky seas? Even if you're on a cruise ship, these things are massive. But I've been on a cruise ship when things were a little bit rocky and people can't walk straight. They're throwing up. Like, it is not a pretty scene. They're unstable. This is what it's saying it's like when you ask God, but you don't trust what he says. You're unstable. You're kind of going back and forth, and you're never feeling like you're on solid ground. Some of you go through life like this because you're not willing to trust God for what he says. You want to do things your way. That means you're double-minded. You want to do things a little bit God's way, a little bit your way. Well, I'll let you kind of be my co-pilot, but I'm not going to let you take the wheel. I'm not going to let you run things. I'm going to do what I want to do. James says, he will give you wisdom, but you've got to trust. You've got to actually listen to what he says. You've got to actually pay attention and apply it to your life, or else you're going to be unstable. And who better to go to than God? Because if you want to talk about someone who loves you, no one loves you like God. No one loves you like God. No one loves you like God. No matter what you've done, no matter your past, no one loves you like God. The word even says, Jesus even says, even if your father and your mother forsake you, the Lord will not. Even when your family abandons you, the Lord will not. The Lord will not. He loves you like crazy, but also he's been that way before. He knows all things. He has all knowledge. He knows all feelings. He knows all thoughts. He knows every single thing about your life, about the world, about science, about history, about math. He knows every single possibility. So who better to go to than God, who loves you more than anyone else and knows more than anyone else? When you don't know the wise thing to do, guess what you need to do? You got to go to someone else. You got to go to others who love you and have been that way before, and you've got to go to God and trust him at what he says. Now, I'm going to close the series. With one more reminder. And it's this question, which is a great question, the best question ever, the question that can change your future and help you live a life with no regrets. This question is absolutely 100% worthless if you don't act on it. You can know it. You can wear your bracelet. You can ask it. But if you don't apply it, it won't do anything for your life. And so, I want to encourage you to not just ask the question, but apply the answer. Not just ask the question, but apply the answer. Ask and apply. Ask and apply. Ask, and I'm going to, just so if you've heard me preach before, you know I'm going to repeat this about 10 more times. Ask and reply. Ask and reply. Reply. I'm getting this wrong. Ask and apply. 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 Everybody say it together. 1, 2, 3. Ask. One more time. We can't just ask the question. We've got to actually apply the answer. And to show you what happens when we just ask the question, but we don't apply the answer, I'm going to close with this story in 1 Kings 12. Let me tell you the deal. There's a guy named Solomon, known in the Bible as the wisest guy ever. He asked God for wisdom. God gave him it. People came from all over the world to meet this guy. At the end of his life, though, Solomon, he lost his way. He kind of got sideways, and his life fell apart. And he dies. And his son takes over the throne. His son's name is Rehoboam. And Rehoboam is going to be called king. All of Israel gets together. And the nation is stronger than it's ever been under Solomon. It is rich. It has a good military. Everything is going well for Israel. Solomon dies. Rehoboam takes over. We're going to pick up in chapter 12 of 1 Kings. And it says, Jeroboam, which is another politician guy who would actually end up becoming king of part of the kingdom, but that comes later. Jeroboam and the whole assembly of Israel went to Rehoboam, who's about to become king, and they said to him, your father Solomon, he put a heavy yoke on us. He was strict. He was hard on us. But now, if you will lighten the harsh labor and the heavy yoke he put on us, we will serve you. And so he did something very, very wise. Very, very wise. He said, go away for 3 days. And when you come back, I'm going to give you an answer. This is wise. He took his time. He kind of stepped away from the situation. He's like, all right, I'm going to actually think about this. So all the people go away. And then King Rehoboam does something amazing, something incredible, something just brilliant. He consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. So he went to the guys that served the wisest man ever to live. These guys had seen it all. They had made all kinds of decisions. And he goes to them and he's like, what should I do? Now I want you to think about something. These guys were wise. They had been that way before. And this is really cool, they watched Rehoboam grow up. They were like his uncles and his granddaddies. These guys loved this little boy. They saw him from diapers to the throne. Like he was loved by these men. These were the perfect people to go to. And he says, what should I do? What should I do? And listen to what they said. They said, if today you will be a servant to them and you will give them a favorable answer, if today, just today, you will say, okay, I'll let up a little bit. They will always be your servants. Your kingship will go great. He says, okay, all right. Verse 8, but Rehoboam rejected the advice the elders gave him. And instead, he went to the young men who had grown up with him and were serving him. So he goes to all his little fraternity brothers who had done nothing. They had never served a king. They were not wise. They didn't know anything. And he goes to them and he asks them, well, what should I do? What should I do to these people? who have said, lighten the yoke on us. And listen to what they say in verse 10. Your father put a heavy yoke on us, but now make our yoke lighter. Here's what they said. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. That's what you should tell them. Your little finger is thicker than your father's waist. Here's what you should tell them. My father laid a heavy yoke on you. I will make it even heavier. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions, which doesn't even make sense, but he said it. And guess who we listened to? Not the wise, loving our uncles and grandfathers of his. He listened to his little teenage friends who had done nothing, who had no idea what was going on. And he goes to the people, and he gives them that cruel answer. You thought it was bad under my daddy? It's about to be worse. You thought you got whipped a lot under my daddy? It's going to be worse. You thought you had to pay a lot of taxes under my daddy? It's going to be worse. And guess what happened? Very quickly, within days, the entire nation split apart, and it never, ever came back together. For the next few hundred years, it would exist as two different nations. Eventually, both would be conquered by enemies, and it would cease to exist as a nation for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years because of one guy's stupid decision. Because one guy said, I'm not going to apply it. I'll ask the question, I'll go to the right people, but I'm not going to apply the answer they give me. We have got to ask and apply. You only get one chance at life. You get one chance at middle school, one chance at high school, one chance at dating, one chance at college, one chance at the way that you live your life. You get one chance at each day, and that day never comes back. You get one chance. And so we've got to do the wise thing. We've got to ask and apply. Ask and apply. So one more time. In light of my past experience, my current circumstances, my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? What's the wise thing to do? If you'll ask this question and you'll apply the answer, if you'll seek out wisdom from people that have been that way before and love you when you're not sure of the answer, you will live a life with fewer regrets. But only you can make the choice. Only you can make the choice. And we're going to have two ways for you to respond tonight. Two ways for you to respond. Each of you have this card on your chair. And this first way is just a way that our staff team, the 6 of us on staff, want to serve you. If you have something that you're going through, we'd love you to just put your name, your gender, your grade, and your cell phone number, and write down what you're going through, what you need guidance on, what you need wisdom on. And at the end of service, as you're leaving or when you're just walking out the door, we just want you to throw it in here. You can fold it up so no one sees it. The only people that are going to see it is our staff team. No one else. And at some point this week, we're going to contact you and reach out to you, and we're just going to try to help you with some wisdom, help you figure out what to do in that situation. Because we want to help you. We love you. Some of us have been that way before, and so we'll reach out to you. And so don't pass this opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to get some wisdom in your life. So whatever that is, just fill that card out and put it up here at the end of the service, and we will call you during this week and follow up with you. And the other thing is this. At the end of service, you're going to go out and you're going to be led through the lobby that we were just in before worship. It's kind of like when you go to Disney World and you get off the ride and you have to go through the store because you just went on the ride, and you have to go through the store, and then you'll want to buy stuff, or at least the kids will. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make you walk through the store after the sermon. So you're going to walk through and you're going to have an opportunity to meet your life group leaders or reconnect with your life group leaders. And here's the wise thing. The wise thing would be to go up to them and talk to them, or to go up to them and meet them. And they'll be kind of set up between 6th and 12th grade, and they're actually going to start kind of walking out right now. And they're going to be out there, and you're going to have a chance to meet them and connect with them and get into a life group. We want you to do that because they are a great, great, great resource for you to help you choose the wise thing. So I'm going to close in prayer, and they're going to go ahead and head out, and then we're going to close in a time of worship. Heavenly Father, we ask that we would do the wise thing. That we would not just hear the question, hear a sermon, and go do what we want, but that we would ask ourselves what the wise thing to do is. And that we won't just ask, but we'll apply. We'll apply it. Lord, I pray wisdom over our students, our middle schoolers, our high schoolers, our guys, our girls. No matter what their past is, I pray for wisdom moving forward. We ask this in your name.